Good morning. I'm glad you could come. I know you have made a long distance to be with us. Welcome to ALOFT and to the Safety Footwear Revolution Week. Come with me. Let's see who we can find. This is where I received your letters and documents, and sometimes where your ride with us starts. Hey, I know this guy from TV. He will bring to us the Digital Revolution panel. Bye, see you soon.
Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you all to the Safety Footwear Revolution Week, and we have a great panel of speakers. I've spoken with each one of you in the last few days, and all of them were great conversations. I already learned a lot, and I hope everybody who is watching us or listening to us can do the same. We'll make this just a conversation about the industry and the future of more than the industry. I suppose we can speak about our own society, because the themes that we have here will impact all of our lives, not only our shoes, if you want to. So what we had arranged for that everybody in the audience knows why each one of us is here. I've asked every one of the speakers to introduce himself and to say a few words about why he is here and his role in this debate about the future of the industry, and mainly technology, how will impact the industry. And inside technology, I think several of the main themes will be artificial intelligence and technologies like 3D, virtual reality. We have a lot to speak about. So if I'm directing the debate, so I think I will tell everybody I'm a journalist. I'm specialized in new technologies for almost 2/3 of my career, I can say. And I have a weekly program about technologies, and that's why they've asked me to put the questions. That it's what I know how to do, and you are the specialists here. So I have to start somewhere. The first person that I see here is Jens. Jens, do you want to start by presenting yourself and saying a little bit why you are here?
Thank you very much. Good morning. My name is Jens Schmidt, and I'm the CEO of Footwear Innovation Lab in Germany. And we emerged from our former company, Footwear Concept and Design, and founded in 2017 the Footwear Innovation Lab. And the question, of course, is what it is all about. The idea was to be able to give to our customers a service around 360 degrees in the development. And this is exactly what we're doing. We have all the departments for development in-house. That starts with last development, the entire 3D design of outsoles and uppers, the visualization, rapid prototyping. We have a pattern and stitching room in-house, and of course also a direct injection machine. And I'm very honored to see Patrizio the first time here, because ECCO is one of the most admired companies in that sector. And we are trying to push the limits in this direct injection with many new technologies and the different use of this technology. And of course, as we are a bit stopped by the speed and development by the mold makers, we even implemented an entire 5-axis milling machine to be able to do our molds. And that means we're giving an entire service to the customer. Even in times like Corona, we're able to run that at full speed without slowing down things. On the contrary, we even speed up things. We're trying to find new fields in the shoe business, because the standard today is not enough. We have a changed situation in retail, and this is something which we should understand as a possibility and not as a danger. And it took some of our customers quite a while to understand that the world would not stop, only due to this COVID crisis. And now we are facing new sensations that people say, okay, we have a new situation, we can cope with it, and the market requests new interesting products, and that's what we're here for.
Yeah, I've been talking about that a lot, and I think it's also one of the subjects here. I've been saying that we are preparing for this for at least the last 3 decades, and I had the chance to make a 30 minutes program only about the technology jump, that we are living at this moment. And one of the conclusions it's that like in every major crisis, there is also great opportunities here. Nobody wants the crisis, but we need to make the best of it. So I have here people from Lisbon to Tel Aviv, I think, and I'm going to make a small ping pong here. Now I'm going to ask a Portuguese guy. So, João Maia, do you want to present yourself and say a little bit why you are here?
Yep. Good morning to all of you. Thanks to AMF and the organizer of this event to this invitation. I'm João Maia, and General Manager of APICCAPS. APICCAPS is the Portuguese Shoe Federation. We represent not only the footwear manufacturers, but all the clusters, so all the components, technology developers and suppliers. So we represent the full value chain of the footwear industry here in Portugal. Mm-hmm. Our main objective is to bring support to companies to all our activities. So we support the companies in internationalization process. So we organize the participation in international fairs. We help them with training, and with our technological center, we also support our companies with a laboratory, with consultancy, with training for technology questions. So we can expect as association, but not only as a lobby association, but also as bringing support to companies all sectors. One of our recently initiatives was to develop a portal for, you can see as a marketplace, but in reality it's not a transactional marketplace. It's only a promotional marketplace for companies to be listed and to present their products. So any buyer can come in and understand what are the products for each company that are manufactured in Portugal, so they can focus and select the companies that are most interesting for their profiles. So so it's you can see it as a lead generator site for our companies. So they can understand who is the buyers that are most interested in their products. So it's one of our recently initiatives.
Mm-hmm. So you have almost also a political role in talking to companies about the right directions to take now in the future, right?
Yes, what we do frequently, we try to understand what are the trends in the market. The trends not only for products, but mainly the trends for technologies and strategies. And then we try to identify which is the companies that are leading those trends in Portugal or even worldwide, and bring those examples to our companies for them to follow, and bring ideas to our companies to imitate. So it's mainly like, you can understand there's a nice word as benchmarking, but it's mainly an imitation process, which is the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Patrizio, I think you are far away from Portugal. This is really impressive that we can even make a discussion like this with being so easy to connect with everybody. It's really amazing. Just think for 30 seconds about all the work and the travel that we would have to do to speak face to face. Of course, I prefer to speak face to face to everybody, but the opportunities that are open like this are really, really great. Patrizio, do you want to explain what you are doing in
absolutely.
Tel Aviv?
So, my name is Patrizio. I'm heading the Innovation Lab at ECCO Shoes. ECCO has different groups innovating, and our group is the one that looks at the horizons, which are a little bit more farther away, meaning that not only new to ECCO, but innovations that are new to the world as well. And we have, we're a self-sustained, I would say, think tank or design think tank, where we have developers and definitely 3D design capabilities of doing our own products, 3D printing and digital development. The group is relatively independent from, of course, is fully owned and operated by ECCO Shoes, but we have a lot of freedom to experiment. And we have some projects that we have been experimenting in the past year and a half, open to the public, so to say. But yeah, so it's almost like an incubator of ideas, and definitely our domain is including leathers as well. So we think about leather innovation as well, being part of ECCO Leather. So to say, 360 degrees innovation group.
For ECCO.
Exclusively for the brand, yes. It's again, it's inner looking, and of course we do a lot of collaborations outside in terms of knowledge. Yeah. Okay. We have a lot of partnerships in the industry, and but definitely, of course, for ECCO.
Great. So in the same logic, I'm going to ask a Portuguese guy, the last one, to tell us the same. Paulo Novais, do you want to present yourself, please?
Yes, good morning to everyone. Many thanks for the invitation. It's always a pleasure and an honor participating in this kind of panel. I'm probably with Lourenço the only guy, or the two only guys that don't understand nothing about shoes. Forgive me for that. I'm just...
I have lots of shoes.
Yes, of course. The recent months, it's been difficult to acquire the ones that I like, by the way. I work more than 25 years in the University of MINHO. I'm an academic guy. I'm full professor in computer science at the Department of Informatics of the University of MINHO. I work in the Algorithm Research Center. It's probably the biggest that we have in engineering, at least in my region. I'm born in the first capital of Portugal, by the way, because Lourenço mentioned Lisbon, but it's also important to mention Guimarães, of course.
I'm sorry.
No, don't worry, but I never forgot that. My research is in AI. I try to make systems, usually I say a little more or little smarter, intelligent, and at the same time reliable. I was the former president of the Portuguese Association until December. I collaborate with a lot of institutions here in Portugal, namely with Gulbenkian, because I'm the scientific coordinator of a new program that we call New Talents on AI. It's a very interesting initiative of that foundation. What do you want to know more, Lourenço? I think it's enough.
I think the idea for it to be here, it's really to bring another vision from science, of course, and you specialize a lot in computer sciences, in the artificial intelligence. So I think it's very important to speak of these new things in a more broad, I'm missing the word, in a more even theoretical way, okay. And to expand a little bit beyond the industry that is very well represented here. I think okay. It's a little bit of your role. I have specific questions for you.
Okay. I don't know if you want I say two things about AI in 2-3 minutes.
I want
now?
to, but first,
okay.
It's the time of Shayne, last but not least, of course. Shayne Smith, do you want to present yourself and tell us a little bit why you are here?
So hi, I'm Shayne. Thank you for having me. To give a bit of background, I've been working in the media and e-commerce industry for a little over 10 years. And specifically in the last few years, I've been working on new forms of scalable media that can help change the way we view retail products online. During this path, I found my way to RESTAR and joined the team as the Chief Business Officer around a year ago. In my role, I'm to consult with many of the large and small footwear brands to provide innovative ways of using and creating 3D assets to digitally transform your business into the new era of 3D. So what is RESTAR? RESTAR basically provides an end-to-end AI-based 3D capturing and visualization solution. What does that mean? Basically, we provide you access to our mobile app in which you take a 1 to 2 minute video of the shoe. We then provide you back with a fully usable 3D asset that has a variety of use cases, which I'm sure we're going to get into a bit later. And yeah, so RESTAR was founded 2.5 years ago. We have around 15 employees currently in San Francisco and Tel Aviv. And the last few years have been really exciting as digital transformation has really accelerated. And we're working with a lot of people in the strategic footwear industry and anyone that's looking to make that leap into 3D.
Great. Thank you very much. So, Paul, you were almost starting to explain ourselves a little bit about artificial intelligence, and I think it's a great way to start, and then we can talk about more specific themes for the industry. But there's a lot of confusion. People still think about artificial intelligence like robots who are going to take over the world, and that's not what we are talking here. What are we talking here when we speak about artificial intelligence, and a little bit how can it be important for the industry, if you don't mind?
Okay, thank you. Just an introduction. AI is a recent field in computer science. He born in 1955-56 with John McCarthy and Dartmouth College. It was a very famous conference. At the time, John McCarthy, a professor in Stanford, defined AI as a kind of science, a science that studies intelligence in different way to understand AI. Using the Star Wars movie, by the way, when you see the two robots, you see two different of AI. We call it an intelligent behavior. Okay, the two robots, RTT2 and C3PO, are different, but are at the same time the two intelligent. That means that we can have different manifestation of AI. But at the same time, John McCarthy defined AI as an engineering to create intelligent machines. But when he mentioned intelligent machine, at the time he was thinking intelligent programs more than robots, okay? But from that definition, it becomes the scenarios of science fiction that you mentioned that at the same time are very good to attract talent in our field, but it was also at the same time bad because it gave a bad impression to the community, okay? In our days, there are, at least for me, a better definition given by Yann LeCun. Yann LeCun is vice president and chief AI scientist at Facebook. He's a very clever mind. It say our intelligence is what makes us human, but it is also AI will be an extension of that quality. And it is from that point of view that I prefer to use AI. I explain why AI can be very important in all the organization that we have in the world. It can be a university, can be a company, can be even a public organization, okay? AI is a kind of instrument that can help us to solve the problems. The problems can be using analogy the cheese game. Okay, if you remember Deep Blue in the final of the 20th century, the program of IBM play against the best player of chess of the world at the time, Garry Kasparov. But the problem was we put a machine with unlimited resource play with a human, okay?
Yeah.
And he wins not because it was clever, he wins because it was able to do calculation, arithmetic calculation faster than the other, okay? But for the first time, we have a machine that wins someone, okay? So, and if we look at evolution of technology, we'll see that happened recently, 10, 15 years ago, two achievements that are very important. We have now the capacity to storage, unlimited storage. So we can have now big data. And at the same time, so we have the capacity to manipulate and to use that data, okay, with power, computation power. So we can solve one thing that it was at the time difficult to do, but now we can. Another analogy, if you look at a problem, usually humans can analyze 2-3 variables, okay? It's more or less our at the same time, okay? Yeah. Even when you use the dashboard that we are using, typically we can put 2-3 variables and then analyze the problem. But computers can do that with a lot of more variables. So AI can be a very good instrument to open and to help us to look at inside complexity, okay? And we will solve the problem of complexity. We see that when you see, for example, a lot of persons that work in computer vision, and the way that they are able to manipulate a lot of different images at the same time, and systems tell you, look at that image and not to the other one, okay? Mm-hmm. So we can say now something that Eric Schmidt from Google said a long time ago, that computers are almost at the human level in the basic function. If you look at for example, vision, image, speech, you will see that now computers are more or less in the same level of us, okay? You see that when you use your Cortana, when you use Siri, you see that when you use Google, for example, and introduce text and it translates automatically. So if you could imagine all the tasks that in your company can be done only using that basic function that humans are doing, you can imagine all the level of automation that you can introduce in your company. So basically, there are someone that say a few years ago that all the jobs that you can describe can be automated, okay? That's more or less in the point that we are now. The only thing that depending to automate that job will be economic reason, the value of the labor versus the value of the technology that we will implement, okay? Just another point that I think it is important to mention here. We are living in a world in which AI, more than the AI of robotics, that you have already see that probably in most of your company with the 4.0 industry, and you see that with in the introduction of automation, and robots in the production line. But now we have a different AI, an AI that is able to learn from experience, from data, etc. Okay, if you have a machine that can learn, and we will see if it is, obviously, like all the technology, you can produce good things and bad things, we know that. But if you imagine that now you have something that can learn and learn better than us, find very deep inside the data, the knowledge that it contains, how can we use that data, okay? And also it is important to have that technology because obviously we are not able to deal with all of the data that we are producing in our days, okay? So for me, in an organization like the one that you have, you can see in 5 levels at least of introduction of this kind of technology. At level of the customer, I think it is quite important to know, and I think Shayne have already mentioned something about that because he mentioned electronic commerce. and it is obviously one of the interesting area. But when you see a customer, we can imagine the increased level of satisfaction. If you know better the needs and the preference of your customer, you can adapt better the product that you want, okay? The second level will be the human resource, because more important than all the robots that you have, all the machine that you have, even the beautiful installation that you have with a beautiful garden at the front of the entry of your installation, it will be also the human resource, because everyone can have the machines, everyone can have a nice place near of the airport, near of the highway. The key element will be always the human resources. So we can also use this kind of technology to attract talent and to retain talent. Talent in a society based on knowledge will be always the key factor of competitiveness. The three level in which you should think to apply AI is in the level of the product that you develop, adding value to the product. In nowadays, a product, it's any more a product, in my opinion. It's a product with service. If you integrate service in your product, we will have something different. Imagine your shoes. I do not understand nothing, I just use the shoes. But if you have the possibility to, at the same time they were walking, your shoes give a lot of data to a system that explain to him the number of steps. It's just a stupid example, everyone know that, but it could be useful to understand my point of view. If you use that data that come from for your smartwatch, and you see the number of steps that you are giving, the quality of the walk that you are using, etc., that could be a very interesting service to your client, okay? And adapt their product to its needs, to its preference. The last level in which is important, you know, that is the process to improve the productivity. You have already done that with the robots, with all the example of automation that you have. And the last level is in the knowledge discovery. Giving, when you give the power to that technology to access to your data, you will be probably able to determine a kind of patterns that you have inside of knowledge and discover what we call a different knowledge, a better knowledge. Just to finish, I remember always a very famous Portuguese, the special one is José Mourinho, probably the best coach of the world, at least for the Portuguese it is. We want always to have someone that are the best. When he arrived to UK, he spoke with my dear friends of England that are bad cookers, as everyone know that, and explained to them how we do omelets. Everyone knows to do omelets, we need to have eggs. Of course, we need to have a good master chef to do the best eggs, but without eggs, it's impossible, I think, at least, to produce good omelets. But he forgot something. Even to do omelets, we need to have very good eggs, because if you have bad eggs, it will be probably impossible to do good omelets. And because of that, one of the huge problems that you have in most of the company in your sector is, because I know that, is the bad quality of the eggs. Sometimes people forget that eggs, in that case, forgive me, data is not only to have the record of the invoice. It's not enough. It's not enough to have an ARP, an enterprise resource planning. You should have all your process, all the line of products that you have digitalized, okay? If you not go to a process of digitalization or all the process, you will be not able to take that train. The train of knowledge, the train of AI is the one that will give in the next 10 years, I'm not an astrologer, but in the next years, the possibility to have success. So also, at the same time that is important to introduce the technology is to have the data that will do the difference, okay? Mm-hmm. And I think for the moment it's enough.
Yeah, Paul, thank you very
much.
Sorry
for the long time, but as you know, I'm academic. I like to speak.
I will be honest. You took a long time, but you are great systematizing a lot of concepts that were important here. I will ask immediately, maybe I think we have labs, 2 or 3 labs here. And I will ask, for starters, to Patrizio and Jens, do you think all those tools that Paulo was talking about are really converging now, and that this crisis of the coronavirus can help change the industry for the best? Do you really feel that your role is now even more important than it was before?
Well,
Jens, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Jens.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's not about importance at that stage, but it's picking up new ideas. And I found it very, very interesting to listen to Paulo's conversation, because before that, the shoe industry was finding itself in a situation which was really comfortable. Nobody wanted to try something. Everybody was happy with the status quo. Now we are facing new challenges which we can overcome with the use of big data. But nobody really knows in our industry, apart from a couple of big organizations, retail organizations here in Germany, how to use the big data, and also how to use and interpret the data in a personal way. For example, Paulo was talking about using the step counting, for example, and you see that on your smartwatch. It is only for personal use, but it has no value for the society if we are not able to interpret this data and give it out to further organizations. And this might be a very controversial situation. We are working since a year on such data collection and interpretations of data, and how to integrate that into shoes. And it is a project we can only realize in the US. We cannot do it in the European community. Why cannot we do that? Because we have our data protection rules, and the GDPR rules will not allow us to be able to bring that as a benefit to the society. Especially taking our subject here with safety footwear, we should have a focus on how to give an extra value and a benefit to the person who has to wear these shoes. They not only have to fit, they not only have to protect, they not only have to be comfortable, but they have to deliver data, which maybe our insurance companies, our doctors, our physicians, and trade unions can use for the benefit of the worker to have more comfort. And that is something in Europe, it will never happen. In the US, we're at the stage that we can launch the product within the next 6-7 months. And that means bringing new technologies like AI into an old production of shoes. And that needs also be done in a new way.
I think you even mentioned connecting with the idea that Jens just told us, and it's worrying in a bit. You even mentioned that you study biomechanics and the personalization of a shoe. I think you can even, for instance, make diagnostics about someone
Absolutely.
just by having sensors in a shoe. Can we really do this in Europe, or our laws are starting to work against development in that area?
Yeah, it's a complicated question. First of all, Paulo, thanks so much for the intro, because I think every company should get the lecture, like every company that does products anyway. But yeah, we did 2 CES in Vegas with the Soul System, which is a partner of us in this industry. So, and we have a project that we piloted in Japan and in Europe to a limited extent, where we actually use in-shoe sensors to measure a person's gait and biomechanics. And then we have an AI in the background that is able to create a customized part, interpreting that data. And that part is 3D printed and inserted in the shoe, and it mitigates some issues. So I think, Jens, if you go into regulation, we're looking a lot into this because we really have a very mature platform at the moment. You can go and check it on the website. It's called quant-u.pro. That's a website about our efforts in wearable sensors. the thing is that if you take that from an HR level, it's very complicated. So I agree with you, Jens. You can't keep control of a worker's day of work, for example, from a third party. But if that data is in control of the user itself, so that means that it is in its domain, then you can actually do any sort of data capture. The same way that the Apple Watch now tells you if you have atrial fibrillation and some other issues that might be life-threatening. It's actually exactly the same concept. Is when you apply it as a third party. So if you want to control, for example, the performance of a worker based on the gait, but there is a lot of stuff that we can read from sensors. Our approach is different than other approaches. I think we are very much consumer-centric or user-centric. So we're trying really to get the user first, in this in our AI cloud, so to say, and then being able to offer services to that using that information that evolves with time. So we know, for example, gaits and biomechanics, they vary with time. There are people with injuries, people that develop kids, and so there is an incredible advantage in using some sort of technologies. Applying them into in mass markets is another story. But I think
do you think the sports industry, sports shoes industry, and also the safety industry can help introduce those technologies, because it is much more obvious the role of sensorizing shoes in those two fields?
Look, inevitably, it will be inevitable. Now, you have a lot of different small brands that are doing, super cool projects. They are not very well funded. There are plenty of brands that have the sensors in the shoe. You buy them, you run with them, like some sort of virtual trainer. But the big difference is that today, the Apple Watch is very limited in what it can tell you. First of all, the Apple Watch cannot recognize that it's you wearing it. You can hand it over to somebody else, and it doesn't know that somebody else is wearing it. While a sensor-enabled shoe, or of our level of sensors, for example, we can actually understand who's wearing it, which is it's pretty incredible. From that point of view, and what you can understand concentration. You can do marketing brief based on the real activity of your customers, because if you imagine that, you may have couch potatoes that is 90% of your customer spectrum, and but you don't know that, or maybe a lot of your customers want something that is much more performing and they ask it for you. But if you can measure, and of course we have to be very, very careful in not impacting privacy and other issues, so you don't want to over control things. But definitely for runners, it's an amazing opportunity. But for me, it's always important that you add the customized parts. So that's what we're working on. We work on customization for a piece of footwear that can actually change that behavior, because you can't really change or tell people to change or walking in a different way. That really is a different story. So I think that, all the stuff that Paolo talked about, this connection with Industry 4.0, 5.0, whatever will come in the future, but it's incredibly pertinent. I mean, I don't think there will be any brand, 10 years from now that doesn't have a process of customizing to some extent their products. People, especially during pandemic now, where you have a lot of people looking for a reason to buy something, that really is very transformational.
That's a great idea. People looking for a reason to buy something. It's very important, really.
True, completely true.
Our consumer behavior, it's really changing very rapidly. And João, with this idea of Patrizio, you are so near our real companies in the field. Do you think the industry here in Portugal is ready for this change? Do you have lots of questions for the companies that you talk to about the point that Patrizio and Jens were talking about?
No one is ready for this change. We are always preparing for it.
Sorry, can you repeat the first phrase? I didn't quite catch it.
No one is ready for this change. No one in the world was ready for this. So everyone is adapting and replanning everything during this pandemic and during this evolution of technology. So we are living 2 or 3 big changes in the world at the moment. Pandemic is just pushing very fast the digital transformation of our products and companies. And as Patrizio was saying, we see customization as a huge change in the product and in the process for our companies. Portuguese shoes companies are mainly focused on small orders and quick reply and being flexible to their clients, and in the limit, being flexible is producing one pair by pair. So of course, customization is a huge opportunity. We see that changing. So customers are looking for it. And brands are trying to offer that to their clients, and Portugal is it's well placed to supply those kinds of to manufacture those products. So we are all our companies are preparing for it. We see a lot of examples emerging in Portugal. Every day we see another brand that are coming to the market with customization products, working with a different Portuguese manufacturer. And that is really changing our companies a little bit every moment. Of course, for this moment, it's quite small business yet, but it fits our competences and our accents, and that's the way forward for us. So customization is clearly a big thing for us. I have my doubts about huge sensors on the mass market. So I see that sensors in the product are for very specific segments at this moment. So we don't see we see that sensors are more like a wearable. We see that those sensors in bracelets at this moment, connecting with your iPhone.
Shoe can be a wearable.
But it's more long-time wearable, because shoes will degrade in 1 or 2 years. And you want to keep your sensors for more than that, and you don't want to change your sensors every time. So it's more
unless they're cheap. Unless they're cheap.
Unless
they're cheap, of course. And they're easy to produce nowadays. That is something which is no longer a lot of cables and batteries all over the place. Just imagine that your energy and your data will be transported by the garment, for example, immediately. You don't have to put cables all over the place. It's a new technology which we can implement, but we have to renovate our industry. We have to open the minds of people.
I want to ask another thing, to introduce another team here with João Maia, because of his connection with all these companies. I buy all my shoes online. I'm one of those. Are the companies realizing that lots of people want this now?
Yes, they are.
True what I'm saying.
Yes, they are realizing it, but it's quite challenging for our companies. We are not the average and the average company in the world. Our companies are quite small. They are quite focused on the manufacturing process, and they are not focused on the branding, on manufacturing, on connecting with final clients. And this brings quite a challenging for this change, because when you buy your shoes online, mostly of the online buyers search for a big brand, and the big brands are more easy to sell online than small brands, because you already tried an Adidas or a Nike shoe, so you can buy another one because you know that fits your foot. So it's easier for a big brand than for small brands or for small segments brands. For that kind of things, it's quite hard for our companies to enter on the online market. What we are usually doing is that we are working with our flexible mindset and our quick response to the market, and work with bigger brands and to people that are more close to the market and that easily connect with the different markets. So our manufacturers are quite well positioned to work with new French, Germany, Dutch brands that come to Portugal to manufacture their shoes that are sold online in those markets. For that, we are really well prepared. For selling our brands, we need to prepare ourselves even better. One of the segments that we really think that we can develop from Portugal is very niche market brands. So nowadays, with the social networks, we can see the market not only as a geographical place, but as a taste segment thing. So you can go to Facebook,
like safety shoes.
for example, for safety shoes, because you can target your safety shoes for very specific positions of work or different tasks that your worker has to do, and you can redefine and think shoes that are very specific for those professionals, and you can target those professions in their groups in Facebooks or LinkedIn's, and you can target them not only for one specific market, geographical market, but for all the world. And that's a thing that didn't exist before the social networks, because if you have to sell your shoes on a physical place, and for put those shoes in that physical place, you have to have a minimum quantity in that city. So if you only have 2 or 3 people doing that professionally in one city, it makes no sense to develop those kind of shoes. Nowadays, if you have 10,000 people in all over the world in a very specific professional, you probably can think of those as a target group and develop a special shoe for those guys. If the professional, if the task that they develop needs a special shoe, and that you can target with social networks and then deliver it online, and you didn't need a physical store for that. So that's quite an opportunity for Portugal, because it fits in our very flexible way of doing things. But for that, we need to develop our digital marketeer competence, because for marketing online on social networks, you need a really different way of thinking and promoting our products and brands.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I think is where Shayne will intervene, because I've been asked one thing I wanted to ask you since the beginning, and it was a question that stayed hanging when you talked about the what is really what you call, I think of the shoe industry. I'm not in the shoe industry, so I think of the shoe industry, even when I buy shoes online, as an industry of things. And Shayne only talks to me about 3D assets and digital things. And Shayne, what's the concept of a 3D asset, and how does it connect with eventually virtual reality, and with even with selling to the final consumer a product?
Great question. So yeah, as we see today, a lot of the industries are going into 3D, and what does that mean really? Where they're using it, how is it being used, and what difference can have just a single asset have? And I'd like to go into a bit more, what are they being used for? And for example, that 2-minute video that you made to get that 3D asset, that asset doesn't die once you've used it once in some place. Maybe you place it on the website.
Sorry, Shayne, I will ask you to explain a little bit what you told us about that video at the beginning, because it probably there are some people that entered this panel after we started. Can you explain again the 2-minute video and then develop your idea?
Sure. So basically what we do is we provide a solution to create 3D assets. And how we do that is by taking a 1 to 2 minute video of the product itself. And then what our algorithms do is it selects the best pictures and reconstructs a 3D model of that shoe. The shoe then that asset itself then can be used wherever you like, from virtual sampling, which is from a factory, your shoe comes off the production line, it's scanned immediately, and already it can be sent out to your sales teams, for example, that can now go and sell the shoe, because during Corona, as we know, having physical samples and carrying them around with you is quite problematic. So how are you going to sell if you can't really show anything physical? And the answer is having a 3D model that allows you to move it around and actually get the feel for it. And if that's not enough and you still want more, so that same asset then can allow you to go into AR try-on, so augmented reality try-on, which basically means you take a phone, point it at your foot, and that shoe will appear on your feet through foot tracking. And yeah, so you're able then to, again, inspect it, take pictures and see how it looks on you, maybe if that's what you're looking for. And again, just on what you were talking about before with configuration, that same asset, again, can be applied where you're able to actually change the materials on that asset. So I can give you a 3D configurator. You go onto a shoe website and you don't really know what shoe you're looking for, but you do know that you would like some red, some green, and you're able to actually change the colors of the shoe itself. And for some factories, this goes straight to the factory and they actually produce the shoe that the person really wanted. And it might not have been something they thought about before. Yeah, so I guess those are the main areas where people are using it. But even to take one step back, before the shoe's even ready, you want to make iterations and work on that shoe. And again, once it's being produced in a factory, that sample has to be sent out to everybody. And once they've received that sample, only about a week later through DHL or one of the delivery companies, they can only start working on it and then probably have to send it back or give the comments much later. Whereas with our technology or 3D, you're able to actually, within an hour, see what came out in that factory and be able to make decisions on that shoe, make changes, and get it back to the factory. So you're actually being more sustainable by not producing so many samples. Everything is being online. And that asset itself, even once you're done, you can use it again to place it on your e-commerce website. You can automatically generate product photography. There's a lot of uses just with that simple 3D asset that started off where someone just scanned for 2 minutes in the factory. And it keeps going on from there. We see it going into virtual showrooms as well, where people want to see those shoes, but they don't want to just see it how you see it on a website. The standard e-commerce websites today are pretty much what Amazon brought 30, 40 years ago, where it's a standard product photography. You don't get more than that. And we haven't changed it. And really, we've seen all brands that are taking the step are increasing their sales, are able to get, I guess, the millennials and the newer generations very interested. And not only them, just the older as well, where people really want to be able to feel the shoe, and it's not possible during these times. And this is what we're going to provide.
Mm-hmm. Gents, aren't we asking too much of the consumer here?
No, not at all. I mean, this is the change, and what Shayne just described is for us everyday business. We're doing 95% of our developments already in 3D. That means we're not producing samples in different colors and materials. We already do that completely in 3D in a quality that it is hard for the person to look at it and say it is a picture taken from a real shoe or it's a simulation. This is the level of visualization we have already reached. Now, this is what I mentioned with accelerating and bringing it faster to the market. The development is more sustainable and it will convince the consumer much faster, because some ideas just don't reach the consumer at the moment because there's a retailer in the middle who is thinking of different objectives. He has different targets than his consumer, for example. He wants to have a sale or let's say a turnover on the space he's offering, but good ideas are not coming to the consumer. And what shows us now is that consumers are able to understand 3D pictures, 3D visualizations, because if you look at the young generation, my daughter is 21, they grew up with PlayStations and virtual reality. This is something completely normal to them. Maybe we are a model running out that we are still handcrafting things, but on the other hand, the future generation has the vision and has the education to understand that. So it is a normal way, and we're not asking too much from the consumer. On the contrary, the consumer is wonderfully flexible, accepting challenges, and if something is new, there are early adopters who drag that through the distribution channel. They look at it, they say we like it, and then automatically it becomes a trend, and trends lead to sales. Otherwise, how would any social media like Facebook or Instagram would be possible to promote products that are even sometimes not even a product, they're just an idea.
The other thing that I wanted to catch up for a second is
yes, please, Patrizio. I was going to ask you to follow up.
You will see that this is a very simple equation. When you buy brands, online works incredibly well. So exactly, you say before, when you buy Nike, a pair of Adidas shoes, like people know mostly you buy into the brand, into the statement, styles that things that how they fit. So most of the time, when you go down the product specific, process, then you need those tools that Shayne was actually showing. So theoretically, today you have these big brands doing this technology, like stunts, show you this in AR, you have like some amazing apps today that do that already. But those people would buy those shoes with or without AR. Where we need this technology, I believe, is that if you're a smaller brand, if you're much more technical, if you're much more focused, then you really want to explain to a customer how that product actually looks like and how it functions. And that's where you need that sort of real-time visualization. You need like agile tools on mobile phones where you can see these products, maybe have some interaction with it. The problem is that most of the time, those small brands, they either don't have the tools to do that, or they really don't, they're not there yet in terms of, because I think it's a really difficult process by itself. But definitely 3D maturity is behind. Like every industry that you talk to today, everybody, we develop that fully in 3D as well. When it goes into sales, it becomes an incredible obstacle to transform that into a lean process. So, you have these beautiful technology stunts, with AR shoes. I don't think they change much in sales. But when it comes into, more focused products, where you really want to leverage maybe on an unknown brand that is something that is very functional, to explain to the customer, especially today, that you cannot go to the stores, and then it would be incredibly useful. That's my take on it.
I think to remember that we talked about 3D printing, and I was thinking when you were talking, I was thinking if a few years ago, it seemed that it was almost the future of the industry. Every time that I went to make, I was making a story about 3D. They always showed me a shoe. And when Shayne was talking about the digital assets, I was thinking, is it a thing today, Patrizio? Or are you leaving behind the actual physical 3D model and going only to work with digital examples, even, I mean, mainly inside the industry? When you are, for instance, developing a product, do you need the physical product before deciding what to do next?
I mean, 3D printing has been, I've been dealing with 3D printers for 20 years. So I can tell you that in 20 years, there's been a huge evolution, but at the same time, not a great deal of there is nothing that is actually really able to produce in mass, which is the problem, today. So when you have an injection line, for products, it's so much easier than do the same thing with a 3D printer. So you either have to find a use for that product to be 3D printed, because if you customize it, for example, you can't use a mold anymore. So, if you customize a product, you need a 3D printer. So there is no demand for customized products, but it's coming up. Some industries,
but it's still important to prototype a shoe, for instance.
It's incredibly important, but the prototypation, of foams, it's almost impossible. So in 3D, so that there are some obscure steps in manufacturing and development that really impeded, at the end, the utilization of 3D printing for what a shoe is for. Especially, first of all, the shoes have never been evolving in terms of price. A shoe today should be 400 or 500 euros, a 3D printed shoe, or 600 euros or 700 euros. I think it will make, but there is no market for that, no, correct? We haven't got shoes at the cost of the shoe, in the past 20 years, they went up. But if you see other products, cars, how expensive they became, and shoes.
I don't know who would buy a phone for 1,000 euros.
Exactly.
A few years ago, nobody would believe that.
It's an industry that doesn't really, that is, you really want to have margins, otherwise you will not survive. And 3D printing is expensive and it's for few. But I am convinced that within the next 10 years, there will be a proper revolution, and for certain products, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Paul, I was curious when we were talking, you quoted several persons, and you started with scientists, and excluding Mourinho, that's an exception. You went each time that you had a quote. I was thinking, well, now it seems that every important quote that Paulo is showing us is from someone in a private company. And we have here several private labs. Do you think all this development is changing from the academia, if you want to?
A real connection with the ecosystems. As you know, my previous rector, Professor Antonio Cunha, as you know, was well known because of that. He was our president of the School of Engineering, and he forced us to go to the industry. So it's a kind of tradition that, for me, a long time ago, that I'm visiting my friends' industry, of course, in my ecosystem, in the neighborhoods, of course, but I know that and I understand that problematic. So because of that, we go to the industry, we trying to find partners. Sometimes the difficulty in our region is the one that João Maia mentioned a few moments ago. It's the size. Even in our times, there are things that we cannot do a small scale. There are things that we cannot do with a little portion of data. We need a lot of data. We need scale to be able to produce the first prototype, to do implement the main idea. Okay. Secondly, by the way, my recent project is to create a new associate lab in Portugal. In Portugal, we have a problem, and probably even in Germany, in other countries, because sometimes we still are in the past in which to be the king, we need to divide the kingdom. Typically, there are a lot of people that think this is important. I do the opposite size. I use the opposite strategy. I'm with a lot of friends that go from the north of Portugal to the ones that after the bridge, the new University of Lisbon, and we are creating one of the biggest associate lab in AI, intelligent systems. And we want to do what we want to do inside that lab. We are more than 600 scientists on the field of intelligent system that go from the fundamental, the theoretical part, mathematics, for example, for Porto, go to the centers that work on AI, like myself and other colleagues, for example, from Aveiro and Porto, and go to the ones that are in the front line developing products, guys from that work very close to the industry. That's, I believe, the right strategy to put in real time, not to do that more fast, okay? To take the advantage to know the problems, because we need to know the problems and the context. João Maia, for example, referred the different contexts that we are in Portugal, even in Spain, for example, and to adapt to that in our benefit. It's like the GPDR, by the way. I forgot to mention that previously. GPDR is, of course, a problem, but at the same time is a challenge that can help us to develop new products, different products in a different environment, and probably construct a better society, by the way. It's not always a problem. So we should look at the challenge that GPDR gives to us and take the advantage to use that. Just a small things to help you. AI can help also. There is a French guy, François Pachet. He worked at Spotify, okay? He worked in creativity, even used computers to do creativity. And I believe in most of the work that Jan Schmidt talking, it could be interesting. François Pachet defined creativity as define a style, okay? It's the same idea is behind the apps that we use to create painting style Van Gogh, okay? They learn the style, so they can learn the style that you are using in your company and help you to create new version of that style. It could be a tool very interesting to adapt the product. Of course, we need to learn the style of the company of João Maia, the company of Albano Fernandes. Use that style, because for me, a brand is to have a style. That's something that I identify. This is the company of Albano. This is the company of João Maia. Of course, not with the names. There are names, but the names of the brand. If we create that style, we have the tools that can help us to, based on the historic products that we have, define a kind of a style, the brand. There are a lot of other tools that can help you to adapt your style to a certain segment of market, okay, cluster and at the end is in nowadays. I know that Patrizio mentioned that difficult to produce one product for one client. It's true, but we can reduce the number of the cluster, the number of person inside the class, and everyone know that in nowadays we are doing limited number of production. The number of the products that we control in the product is small. So we can use that tool to help us to be more effective and even to adapt the products to the other one. Another point that it's important, believe me, that it's important. I know that made a choose for Paulo is complicated, and personalize probably the shoes for Paulo is also complicated, but personalize the service that the shoes will have is most easy, because you can have a set of service and use only the service adapt to the shoes that Paulo wants. A kind of library of service, adapt and really adapt to the one. Could be a good idea. Thank you.
Can you give me an example?
Of shoes? For me,
of that connection of that developing services specific to a client?
In other day, I was, as you know, in my family, there are some tradition in the textile industry. And we was, for example, talking about the projects of leggings. You remember the one that I mentioned to you. The leggings is not a product, it's a service that we include in our service that give the possibility to the person to use the leggings to define the right size of the person this will allow the company to reduce the number of devolution of products, you know. So it could be a service that we can use. We can introduce some sensors, typically wearables for the health sector. They give you a certain biometrics. It's complicated for the moment. I was not expecting your question, but there are a lot of different services. For example, nowadays, the new generation want to know where are made the product. It could be something that we can buy a service, give the possibility to the guys that want to know where are made my shoes, who made the shoes. They want to know, to be sure that the shoes were made by the right person in the good country in which the human rights are respect, for example. Could be that kind of thing at the end made the difference. Probably it will not help you to sell more products, but you will guarantee that you will continue to survive in that society.
Mm-hmm. One of you mentioned, please help me here, that the customer doesn't know what he wants. I don't. It's true. I don't know what is the next shoe that I want. I need to have. I need the industry to present me with possibilities, and then I have at least the impression that I'm choosing, but the customer really doesn't know which shoe to choose next. Which do you remember who told me this?
I believe it was me.
Yeah, and so there's a limit to personalization, right?
Well, definitely the limit to personalization would be on the brand side itself. You know, you can allow the user to choose everything they like, but if you can't produce that, it won't help. But I guess most of the brands, what they've done is they know exactly, let's say they have green laces, blue laces, pink laces. they have them already there, but they can combine them with different ways. So you have a blank shoe. When you go into a 3D configurator, it's a blank white shoe, and you're able to click blue for the heel and green for the laces and pink. And this gives that user that feeling that he's actually customizing his own shoe, but the brand itself was already offering these just in different ways. And this allows the user to feel better with his order, and actually he didn't know what he wanted to start with, and now he does. He gets that feeling like he selected this shoe, and it makes them feel good.
And from my point of view, I think that the next generation of buyers will be really. I mean, we are able with our technology to.
Will be. Sorry, I lost something there. The next generation will be. That's important for me.
They will have much more control over their behavior in footwear. I believe in footwear it will be much more. We do have a technology today that can change the behavior of a shoe. So let's say that you want to use that shoe for going to visit a fair. You're going to stand all day, or a person working in service, or a couch potato, or shoe for very hot climates, and maybe some of these components are swappable. And but I think that if you can tailor that offering, and I think what Shayne just said about customization of laces and colors, this is something that has been done for the past 10 years already. So that you can offer that. But I think the really next shift will be when you start to think about what do you do with that shoe, like what is that shoe for? That shoe is for, just go to work every day, then it has a function. If it's for running, it has another function. And if you can tune that to your needs, then you do have, an opportunity to find a very good reason either to spend even more money on it. Because these services might be purely digital. So you can create, revenue streams that are, like product independent. So it touches sustainability as well. It's an interesting future, which I am 100% convinced is going to be there. I don't know when, but it is a possibility. Put products in control, of the wearer. It's like if you customize your car seat, or if you customize your sofa, or there isn't really there are not many offerings out there today, but we are all different. So
I think you mentioned in our conversation that the shoe industry is still an old industry, old-fashioned industry, and I have here some questions from people who want to put us questions even before we started to talk. Most of them were already answered, but I would like to have your view in a question that I have here. I'm looking for it, that connects. It's a very. The shoe industry has an image of traditional crafts, and I'm connecting this with that idea that it's an old industry. How do you connect this, not to lose, I think it's a positive image, this craft idea, with all that we are talking about of e-commerce, of developing products like you do, with all that technology? How do you connect those two aspects?
I mean, from my point of view, I think it's you're right. There is look, footwear is so different. So you have these small boutique brands, you have like handmade shoes, you have like, of course you don't want to lose that, because
maybe you are talking about too many things at the same time, right?
I think it's very, very complicated. The problem is not shoes have one big issue is the stitching of the uppers. This is something very labor intensive that as very few brands have mastered that or simplified that. Of course there are some category of products in footwear that don't need that sort of work, say a football shoe, or other things that are much more modern, with less layers, for example. But the problem is that the complexity of the products and the fact that there is a soft good and a hard good in the same object, so to say, it creates a lot of different issues. And that's why when we talk about an old school industry, it's just it's traditional. It's hard. It's not car manufacturing. Car manufacturing has been totally Jens, I don't know. You agree? I'm sure you know processes as well.
Absolutely. I mean, if we're talking about shoe industry, it needs to combine the handcrafting. You need to know how to build an upper, how to build a last. This is the most complicated part in that play. And if you don't know that, the shoe will look nice, but it will hurt. And a very intelligent man, I never remember to accept that. If you wear clothes that don't fit, you just look ugly. If you wear shoes that don't fit, you don't buy them anymore. And that is an essential thing in our industry. And that means for me, we need to take the best out of all these scientists we have heard now, AI, shoemaking, mold making, last making. And I think it is the composition of all these elements put together into one shoe, which needs to be for a specific point. If it's a casual shoe, if it's a running shoe, if it's an outdoor shoe, it has its specific needs. So we cannot really generalize things. We have to focus on the function. And here, my personal view of customization is to arrive to the personal fit. That means if we will be able to collect all the data from our consumer and be able in a mass production to modify the last, that it will still work with our molds, with our stitching uppers, and give him a footbed. And this is what ECCO is already doing, scanning feet, giving individualized footbeds. This is only the beginning. This is how you get a customized product for one single person, which will not fit another one. And that is the Industry 4.0 target, production 1. This is the first step we're taking. In the future, we will be able to adapt our lasts in a way that we have a scan, which doesn't take minutes, it takes seconds to take that data, and you copy the footbed, and then we have a next step for rationalization also in the product. So I mean, the shoe industry, unfortunately, is an old industry, and it's a wonderfully complex industry where we add new projects to it. We will not revolutionize it. The wheel has already been invented, and we will never put the heel to the front. But we have to see that the production facility will always, for the next 50 years, remain the same. We have to cut materials, we have to stitch them, and we have to bring, in one way or the other, a soul to it. Where we have deficiencies is in the sustainability, because we cannot still separate materials. We're putting a lot of effort to attach all the pieces to each other, and then we don't want them to come off very easy. So there is a lot of research to be done, and these are the technologies we need to tackle today. Not only new products, but also how to think about the future. Sustainability and making the shoe just better fitting. This would be the target I see for the future.
Mm-hmm. I have here lots of questions that were put before by people interested in our and interested in what you were thinking about these teams, and most of them really were already answered in the process of our conversation. But I would like to put some of them and introduce here another aspect that is specific for the industry. Not it's not something that I would remember, but I think it's important. It's a question from France. And someone asked all of us if COVID has shown that it's possible to do remote work in footwear companies, or does it show the opposite, that it creates lots of problems? I don't know if someone has...
It creates problems. It creates problems. It definitely creates problems. Yes, just
in which way? I will go to you, João. But Patrizio told us problems in which aspects?
No, Jens just said it. You know, you just said about, you know, there is a lot of handwork, there is a lot of craftsmanship, there is a lot of stuff that requires physical presence. So, you know, it's everything that is not automated. You know, it has some issues where you cannot have people on a factory floor. But sorry, Joe, go ahead.
No, your experience with companies in...
Yeah, we realized that with COVID that shoes are made with people. People are needed. It's the main input to make shoes. So with COVID, we have to have a lot of worries about how to manage your teams that work in your factory. So it's a huge question. And for that, we realized that it's not possible to make shoes online. Shoes are made with people that are together inside the factory. You cannot visualize the manufacture of shoes. It's forget it.
I would not agree, João. I'm sorry about that, because this is something where we have been thinking for a long time about it. And The problem is the physical presence that Patrizio mentioned needs to be solved. And how can we do that? The wages that you give the person who is looking at the shoe and wants to show you something is your eyes and your voice. And we started developing together with a company in Germany an augmented reality glass, which allows us to communicate through the eyes and the audio as if it would be standing there. And our experience over the last 12 months in machine maintenance, machine repair, and also in developing and bringing forward products was very easily done by these glasses in a way that we were able to provide this to a customer. And he was standing on the shop floor, on the production floor, and showing me how is the mold being done, what is the effect of the polyurethane, for example, how is the stitching done, because you see it from your own perspective. It's not like using a cell phone and a camera and you're seeing it from the self perspective. This is now a system which is being used not only for the shoe industry, but also for other industries like car industry, and it reduces the production costs.
But I agree with you. I was completing for the guys that touch the shoes, that's not possible, and it's a huge challenge. For everyone that are indirectly in the business, looking for all the administrative things, looking for the guys that as Hannah mentioned, the engineers that can be working outside, can be working from the outside. Usually it's a challenge. And nowadays it's a big opportunity because new technologies are coming very fast. And for the commercial guys that can contact the clients nowadays, clients are more able to hear our offer from online meeting than that they were 1 year ago. 1 year ago, you have to go there with your samples and show your samples. Nowadays, the solutions that Shayne is showing, our clients are able at least to look at them, and in the end, it's an improvement. And it's a huge improvement with virtual reality, but it's not for the manufacturing itself. It's for the support activities, for the guys that maintain the machineries, for the guys that do the commercial, for the designers that can sometimes work from outside. But for the designers, it's also a huge challenging from not working together. But technologies are improving mainly for indirect jobs. But it's challenging. But the big challenging is for managing the plant and for managing the workers that effectively touch the materials.
Mm-hmm. Every labor-intensive process has been hit by this. I mean, all the artisans in Italy, in Portugal. It's important. I mean, Jens, I know that it's pretty cool to use technology. Somebody showing you something live, but you need to be on the floor. The industry wasn't ready for the, let's say, stay home of half of your personnel. It wasn't ready. I think one day it will be. There's not been enough time to react, but it has been creating a lot of disruption in terms of, especially simply R&D and other basic functions, that allow product to land on the table. Like the fact is, even China has been shut for a while, which has been pretty critical. So I think that there is a lot to learn. Absolutely, a lot to learn. But it's not something that went through without anybody feeling it.
Exactly. Exactly. But on the other hand, I still insist, because we have a lot of positive effects on that, and we've been using such systems, for example, to run during COVID all the productions that were initiated in Vietnam and in China without having to travel there, because nobody still today can travel there. That means many questions that needed to be answered could have been answered in a much easier and faster way. So probably I'm a too positive guy, and I'm too much enthusiast about all technology and the combination of technology and shoe industry. But I see it as a positive disruption in our industry to take things forward. And it is also partially the division process, just the survival of the fittest, who is willing to adopt and able to adopt to a new situation, and how will he use it for his own advantage.
I do believe that most industries will not want to come back to the old way of everybody traveling every day, and really we will have to adapt to that. I think almost each one of you will agree that okay, it's hard, but in the future the industry will have to work a lot online. I would like to put another question that we already mentioned on the surface here. We were talking about working online, but there's a question from Portugal specifically who asks, what's the role of social media in B2B companies? We are not talking about B2C to the final consumer. We are not talking about selling shoes on Facebook, but on B2B companies, how do you see the role of social companies? Of social media?
I see several roles for social media in B2B companies. One of them is managing the workers and motivation of workers. It's something that LinkedIn is very involved. It's a role for social media. But then there is the huge role as social media to connect with new clients. So social media can be very interesting to connect safety shoes companies with professional clients all over the world. So it's very clear for me that social media can have a role on that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Shayne, I think LinkedIn.
Shayne, Patrizio, please go.
No, I mean, I think LinkedIn has evolved into pretty, often in a B2B tool if you use it. The way that it has been designed to, and I think that it didn't have that role 5 years ago. It was a totally different story. So I think that there is definitely an opportunity to, now that everything got so virtual, to have these playgrounds. I mean, this conferences panel that it's happening through connections through LinkedIn. So I think it's really, really important.
Mm-hmm. It's unbelievable the amount of ideas that come to me for TV stories through LinkedIn, because it's a very easy way to contact me. And in other in Facebook or Instagram, of course, people talk to me, but it's more to criticize or it's a kind of a light approach. And in LinkedIn, I have lots of good ideas, and many times I've made stories that started on a contact in LinkedIn. You were going to enter, Shayne, or did I misunderstood?
Oh, no, I wasn't going to enter. I totally agree with you on LinkedIn. It's just one of those tools that enables you to deal directly with the people who you want to deal with without going the whole way up and finding your way to connect with that person. And also you get straight to the point, and it speeds up being able to make actions and do things in terms of business.
Mm-hmm. We are really approaching the end of our time, but I would like just to put a final question. And Paul, I will ask you to be very brief on this one because we don't have any more time. And it's a question from Greece, the question that I was sure that would appear here. Isn't artificial intelligence potentially dangerous? And I would put here, it's not on the question, but when I think that when we are talking about potentially dangerous, we are not only talking about the machines taking over the world, but for instance, we are talking about jobs. What do you think, Paulo?
In each revolution, we have the good and the bad windows of that. AI will be a problem to the one that don't have the capacity to adapt. Of course, we talk about
there is no change without pain, right?
Yeah, of course. And for the first time, the previous revolution was made based on the labor force and the manual activity and task that we perform. In that moment, we came to the field of intelligence, the quality that made us different from the others. So, of course, it's a problem. But as I said before, I believe that more than be something dangerous to the human, it will increase the level of intelligence of the world. That's the kind of approach that I prefer to feel and to be sure. And at the end, I'm not sure that we'll have less jobs than the one that AI will create. If you look at the numbers, actually,
it will be different jobs. Right?
It will be completely different and probably better jobs. Some of the jobs that I do, imagine my activity. You know, I'm professor. At the same time, I'm a manager at the time because I need to do the management of a lot of projects, a lot of person. Most of my time is to do bureaucratic activity that an agent, a software can do for me. So even most of the time, in nowadays, I lose my time creating digital signature to documents which are made by others. The only thing I will put is put my digital signature. It takes a lot of time to do that. So if I want to use my time to be creative. For example, I forgot to mention, there is a software called Hook. It's an AI-driven search and for search for trends products on fashion. Could be very useful. That's the kind of thing that I want to do. I want to take my time to discover new things and to adapt that things to new realities, to new contexts. So I believe that AI will give us time. We need to have times. During the last decade, we lose our time. Probably with this kind of tool, we will have enough time to think, to be creative. That's the kind of thing I believe. And I believe that, of course, our government should give to our population the right skills. For example, Japan, as you know, is doing that. Japan wants to have proficient technicals guys on AI, more than 5,000 in the next decade. So that's the kind of objective that Portugal and Europe should have, to put the young kids to use AI tools. And in the elementary school, using, for example, the small robots, things like that. Okay, so if you have a new generation prepare and use that kind of technology, they know how they work, they will be prepared to be better than the stupid robots that we are using. You know, sometimes more than intelligent, we need to have less stupid technology. That's my point of view, okay? Don't
That's
be
a great
afraid
idea,
of
Paul.
that, okay?
If you allow me, I can add something about the job losses with technologies. Technologies is just a way for improving our lives. And if we will look back, there was a lot of moments in the history that the technology reshaped our manufacturing industry, and in the end, of course, there were temporary employment that need to be reallocated to new activities. But the good example for me is the agricultural sector in the US. If you look 1 century ago, in 19,000, more than half of the work population in the US were employed in agriculture, producing food. More than half of the working population. Nowadays, less than 10% of the working population is employed in agriculture. And the US still is a positive trade balance in food. So they are exporting more than importing, with less than 10% of their population in agriculture. So they are producing a lot more for more people with a lot less people than they were. So in the end, the society improved because of technology. Of course, momentarily, a lot of people were employed and they have to move to other industries, have to move to other job positions. Can go and work on cinema, can go and work on entertainment, can go and work on the gaming industry. And that's the good thing of new technologies, that you can move people from one industry to another one, and new industries can emerge, and you can have new solutions for your society. So I'm not worried about the job loss that new technologies can come, because people can be unemployed for some time, but society has a huge capacity to reinvent himself, and new positions will emerge.
Good. João, thank you very much. Really, I'm sure that all of you could say something about this, but I really need to end this conversation. We are few minutes.
Lourenço, one of the problems that technology don't solve, it's the problem to be at two places at the same times. That's the problem.
Yeah. Not yet, at least.
Not yet, at least. Even with augmented reality and the software that Schmidt is developing and use.
And I want, of course, to say thank you to all of you. It was great, and it allows me, all that you have said here allows me to disagree a little bit and say that not unfortunately that the shoe industry is an old industry. It's great that it's an old industry, and at the same time is doing all that we are seeing here and changing with the times and adapting to the new technologies. Let me just say, while you are here, that tomorrow the theme for the equivalent conversation will be Technical Footwear Revolution, with a great panel of specialists in the shoe industry, of course. And even today, I have here a list of teams that most of them are, how do I say this, are going to approach on a more narrow way some of the teams that we talked here. For instance, there is a pitch on mixed reality, another one on storytelling and advertising with that, the famous Edson Ataid. The following is New Infinity Customizer website, sorry, and a workshop with famous designers on the soul of a soul. So if I have the time, I will even try to see some of these pitches, because they might even be important for my work. But if you can, I'm sure it will be interesting to keep on your computer and learn a lot from this event by AMF. And I will just end by thanking you once again, and I hope everybody has learned as much as I have, for sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.